Welcome to The Legal View. I'm Eddie Farah. With me here today is Mr. Larry Huttman, who handles medical malpractice cases in our office. And Larry, I'd like to talk to you about the process of a medical malpractice case. What is different about a typical medical malpractice case in comparison to any other type of personal injury claim?
Certainly. While medical malpractice does involve personal injury, it's a beast of its own. It's very difficult to pursue a medical malpractice case because before you even know if you have a case, all of the medical records, all of the lab reports, everything's got to be gathered, it's got to be identified, it's got to be organized, and it's got to be reviewed by a competent expert in the field, sometimes 2 or 3 different experts. One expert to talk about whether the medical provider departed from a standard of care, one expert to say whether that departure caused damages, and one expert to talk about the damages and what type of fix perhaps the client needs in the future or what exactly the client will experience in the future. And so in order to evaluate a medical malpractice case and even get through the first tier of scrutiny, those things need to be accomplished. Once those are accomplished, the providers have to be placed on notice. They have to be placed on notice within 2 years of the departure or of the event or of learning of the actual ramifications or the cause of that event. Once they're put on notice, then there's a 90-day period while the other side gets to investigate the claims that you're making against them. Those claims are typically denied after those 90 days, and only then can a victim move forward with a claim in the court of law by filing a civil lawsuit. In some other forms of personal injury accidents, none of those procedures are in place, and a lawsuit or a claim can be asserted pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah, so in a car accident type situation, if I'm involved in a car accident, I can go to the courthouse the next day or even the same day and file a lawsuit against the at-fault driver, but that's not the situation in a medical malpractice case, is it?
Correct. That's not the situation. And also in a medical malpractice case, even if you get through all these gatekeeping factors to get into the courthouse, you need to know that you're going to have competent experts that can take the stand and can actually support the case in court, because you could get through all the gatekeeping and get into court. The minute you don't have the appropriate expert in court to say, hey, there was a departure from the standard of care and it caused damages, the judge will kick the case out of court and you'll never get your justice.
On a typical case, how long does it take for that pre-suit period to run before you actually file the lawsuit?
For the pre-suit period to run, once you actually give them what's called an affidavit of merit, where a doctor says there's been a departure from the standard of care and it caused damages, there's a 90-day period that the other side has to evaluate that claim and have their own experts look at it and then respond to that claim. And they have, in essence, 3 forms of a response. They can accept liability and start talking to you about the damages, and what that's called an arbitration procedure, where you go in front of an independent judge and he just decides what the damages are. That rarely happens. You could have them flat out deny it, which happens more frequently than not, or you could have the case resolve on its own between the lawyer for the client and the lawyer for the other side, where they don't want to actually formally deny the case. That very infrequently happens as well.
Once the case has been filed, from that point on, how long does it typically take to resolve?
Once a lawsuit has actually been filed, it could be upwards of 2 years before it is resolved. And the reason for that is, while you can get the case into court and get the case at what's called at issue, so you could actually demand a trial date within 60 days and get a trial date maybe within 6 months to a year out, the problem is there's usually multiple experts and multiple depositions and a lot of investigation that can only be ascertained and be conducted while the lawsuit is pending, and that could take at least an additional year to get all of that accomplished in order for the case to reach a court room and reach a jury.
How much does it cost to handle a typical malpractice case?
Sure. Malpractice cases, again, are very different from your typical injury case. Malpractice cases, as I said, require multiple experts and require multiple costs for collecting medical records, evaluating, organizing medical records. A typical case could be anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000 potentially in cost, depending on the complexity of the case, number of experts involved, and ultimately what kind of damages are involved, because some of these cases have catastrophic injuries.
Well, Larry, thanks for joining us today, and thank you for watching The Legal View.